And with that, that meeting is adjourned. We're now on to the blue agenda. This is the City Council of the City of Emeryville, a successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. The meeting's called to order. We are all still present. Let's go ahead and have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now's the time for public comments on this agenda. Anyone?
Move the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
I would actually like to just ask a few questions
Sure.
on 3.4.
Okay.
And, sorry, 3.3 and 3.4,
Okay.
briefly.
Successor agency, right?
Point 3.
You want to go ahead with 3.3, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on 3.3, this is the item to have 3 professional services agreements in terms of refund tax allocation bonds. And my question is about the term refunding versus what I'm more familiar with, which is refinancing, I guess is a mortgage term. And I would love to have a little bit of clarification on what the refunding of the bonds means in this case.
I will have Jim Fabian, who's our financial advisor, answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, members of the board. In looking at that term, we look at those terms, refinance, refund, as interchangeable. We are defeasing or refunding all of the existing tax allocation bonds of the former redevelopment agency in this approval of this item tonight, and the process that we're going to begin tonight that will conclude sometime in late August, early September with the actual defeasance and paying off of the outstanding bonds of the former redevelopment agency.
And yet we're going to replace those with other financing mechanisms, correct?
That's
So it's just
correct.
changing the type of bond, perhaps, from the tax allocation bond?
Well, no, we will be replacing them with new tax allocation
Okay.
bonds at a lower interest rate.
Okay.
And there'll be one issue.
Right. As city attorney mentioned, we will be replacing the 7 existing bond issues that the former redevelopment agency has outstanding with 2 new series of tax allocation bonds, one being tax exempt and the other being taxable, as they presently are right now.
And is that where our savings is in the tax exempt, or it's actually the rates?
Both. It's in the rates that we'll achieve for both the tax exempt bonds and the taxable bonds.
Great. Thank you for answering those
Sure.
questions. And then my question to staff is, why is it that we need 3 different consultants and services for this rather than 1? And you can answer that too if you want.
If you want to.
If I could, really, these are 3 different. It takes a team of professionals to do this type of refunding of the tax allocation bonds or any bond issue. You have Quentin Timmick serving as bond counsel and disclosure counsel. They will prepare all the legal documents required to be approved. In addition, all the disclosure documents that are required to be approved. My firm, Fieldman Rollap and Associates, would serve as the financial advisor to look out for your fiduciary interest in this transaction. And then Kaiser Marston and Associates would prepare the fiscal consultant report, which would tell the underlying story of both the 1976 project area and the Shell Mound project area to provide the investors with the details on who is in each of those project areas, the assessed valuation, the top 10, the appeals data, basically the underpinnings of the financial situation in each of the project areas. So in addition to that, there will be other professionals that are involved in the transaction as we go forward. There'll be a bond underwriter that will be selected. We'll also have a trustee to administer the bond funds, an escrow agent to handle the defeasance proceeds, and then we'll also have Standard & Poor's that will rate the bonds as well.
Are those additional professional services agreements that will come to us? Or are those within your?
There'll be a bond purchase agreement with the underwriter that will come back before you. We will also appoint the trustee and the escrow agent, and then we will also make a recommendation when we come back in May with who will rate the bonds. We think, based upon preliminary discussions, that we'll be using Standard & Poor's to be the bond rating agency for this transaction.
Okay. And I guess I have one more question, which is that the cost for us to do this is about $275,000 according to the professional service agreements in front of us. And how quickly will our savings, we have $100,000 per year, as I understand, in terms of savings roughly. How quickly, basically, are we paying for that? I was told that these costs are kind of already assumed and that those savings are on top of the costs that were.
Yes, in the staff report, we estimate that we have approximately $6 million of net present value savings overall for the life of the transaction. All the costs are embedded into that cost. In other words, they're included, and that is the net savings, factoring in the cost to actually do the refunding. That equates to average annual savings of approximately $500,000, and the city will receive approximately 22% of that savings, which is roughly $100,000 average annual savings. I will say this, that the savings that you will receive on average is approximately $100,000. It's going to be higher in the early years and lower as in the later years as the debt is repaid. It's not exactly level, and I use the term average annual savings when I describe the savings.
And so I'd like to point out that the other taxing entities, which includes our schools and county, will also then reap the benefits of this.
Absolutely. The savings that are generated from doing this refunding will be shared with the other taxing entities. In other words, the other 78% of the savings of the $500,000 will be spread amongst the other taxing entities, and the city will have roughly 22% of the savings coming back to them.
Thank you. Thanks. That's all of my questions. Appreciate
Call the
it.
question.
I will move the item.
Well, there's already a motion on the floor for the consent calendar. You had some questions on it, so I'm calling the question on the original motion.
Okay, I have one other item that's on
She
the
has one
consent.
more.
I thought we already passed the consent calendar. We didn't?
No,
That's
we
fine.
didn't.
No.
Okay, then should I go do 3.4, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
3.4.
So this is about the 48th Street Community Garden and how we're offering a construction agreement rather, to move forward on the construction. And I'm thrilled it's moving forward. It seems to be moving forward very quickly, actually. By June, it seems. I'd like to have this work done. In the attachment to our staff report, it had a contract for $11,000, and then there's also discussion about allocating $30,000, and I wasn't clear if that had to do with the building of the actual beds in the garden, or it just didn't seem that, I wasn't clear on what was being covered by the $30,000 versus the $11,000, if that could just be clarified.
Amber Evans, Community Development Coordinator and Project Manager for the Community Garden. The contract is both for bringing water, which is the $11,000 number you just referenced, and then $18,000 for the sidewalk work. This is separate from $90,000 that we'll be bringing back to you with an implementation agreement with the Emeryville Community Gardens project, and that will include the plots, the other physical improvements, the fence, and you'll see that at a later meeting.
Okay, thank you. I would move that item as well.
Okay.
Or I don't
All
need
those
to.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Status report on the Oversight Board legal expenditures. The Oversight Board will meet next Tuesday, and so there is no information or status report either. With that, that meeting is now adjourned. We're now on to the Emeryville City Council regular meeting. This is your green agenda in front of you. We're all still present. There are no special orders of the day. Now is the time for public comments. If we have anyone from the public that would like to speak. No? Okay. City managers report.